You have power over your mind, not outside events. Realize this, and you will find strength. These are the words of Marcus Aurelius, a Roman emperor who faced wars, plagues, and personal losses, and yet his wisdom has endured for centuries. Why? Because life's hardships are universal. No matter who you are, challenges will find their way into your life. The question isn't whether you'll face them, but how you'll respond when they come. This is where Stoicism shines. It's not just a philosophy for ancient thinkers. It's a practical guide for developing self-control, building resilience, and mastering the art of acceptance. In this video, we're going to explore how Stoicism can prepare you to navigate life's toughest moments with clarity and strength. Let's uncover the tools that can help you transform adversity into growth. How much time do you spend worrying about things you cannot change? A conversation that went poorly, a decision someone else made, or even the weather ruining your plans? These moments can consume us, but ask yourself, did worrying ever solve the problem? This is where the Stoic concept of the dichotomy of control comes into play. It's a powerful idea introduced by Epictetus, a philosopher who taught that there are two categories in life: things we can control and things we cannot. And understanding this distinction is key to facing life's hardships like a Stoic. Let's break it down. What's within your control? According to the Stoics, it all boils down to your own mind, your thoughts, your choices, and your actions. These are the things you have direct authority over. On the other hand, what lies outside your control? The opinions of others, the outcomes of your efforts, and random events like traffic jams or a job layoff. These are influenced by countless factors you can't dictate. The Stoics believed that freedom and peace come from focusing your energy on the former and letting go of the latter. Think about it this way. Imagine you're out at sea in a small boat. You can't control the waves, the wind, or the storms, but you do have control over how you steer the boat. Will you panic and let the storm toss you around, or adjust your sails and navigate as best as you can? The difference lies in where you choose to focus your energy. Obsessing over the waves won't save you, but mastering your response to them just might. So, how do you start applying this idea in your daily life? First, take a moment to pause the next time you feel overwhelmed or anxious. Ask yourself, is this within my control? For instance, if you're feeling stressed about an upcoming exam, focus on what you can do. Study, prepare, and take care of your body and mind. But worrying about whether the questions will be difficult or how others might perform, those things are out of your hands. By redirecting your energy toward actions you can take, you'll not only feel more empowered but also more at peace. Another practical tip is to keep a journal. At the end of each day, reflect on situations that tested your patience or caused frustration. Write down what was within your control and what wasn't. Over time, this practice helps train your mind to make the distinction automatically. The goal is to spend less time caught up in what you can't change and more time focusing on what you can. And when it comes to the things outside your control, practice the art of acceptance. This doesn't mean passivity or giving up, far from it. Acceptance is an active choice to acknowledge reality as it is, without wasting mental energy resisting it. Picture a boulder blocking your path. You can yell at it, push against it, or blame the universe for putting it there. Or you can accept its presence and work around it. Acceptance allows you to move forward rather than staying stuck. Reflect on your own life for a moment. How often do you get upset over things like other people's behavior or the course of events? What could change if you shifted that energy toward your own actions and mindset instead? By embracing the dichotomy of control, you'll not only feel lighter and more focused, but also more capable of handling life's inevitable challenges. The beauty of this concept is that it's not about perfection or never slipping up, it's about practicing, little by little, until it becomes second nature. Because once you understand what truly lies within your control, you'll realize that's all you ever really need. Imagine a Roman general preparing his troops for an upcoming battle. The stakes are high and the consequences of failure could be disastrous. But instead of focusing only on victory, he takes time to picture everything that could go wrong. He considers the possibility of ambushes, equipment failures, or low morale among his soldiers. By doing this, he's not succumbing to fear, he's preparing himself and his army for the challenges ahead. This ancient practice is known as Premeditatio Malorum, or the premeditation of evils, and it's a cornerstone of Stoic philosophy. Premeditatio Malorum is essentially the art of imagining worst-case scenarios before they happen. At first, this might seem counterproductive. Why focus on negative outcomes? Aren't we always told to stay positive and think good thoughts? But the Stoics saw things differently. For them, this exercise wasn't about pessimism, it was about resilience. By envisioning potential hardships in advance, they believed you could reduce their emotional impact and prepare yourself to respond more effectively when difficulties arise. Let's look at why this works. Often our fears are rooted in the unknown. We don't know what will happen, and that uncertainty can leave us feeling anxious and unprepared. But when you allow yourself to consider the possibility of hardships with a clear and rational mind, you strip them of their power to surprise or overwhelm you. It's like rehearsing for a play. You walk through the toughest scenes so that when the time comes, you're ready to perform. For example, let's say you're about to start a new job. Instead of only imagining how great it will be, take a moment to think about what could go wrong. Maybe your first project will be more challenging than you expect, or you'll struggle to get along with a coworker. Now ask yourself, if this were to happen, how would I handle it? What could I do to remain calm and in control? By visualizing these scenarios, you're not inviting them to happen. You're mentally equipping yourself to navigate them if they do. One famous adherent of this practice was the Roman philosopher Seneca. He advised people to occasionally reflect on the possibility of losing their possessions, their loved ones, or even their lives. While this might sound morbid, Seneca believed it reminded people to appreciate what they have in the present moment and to avoid taking anything for granted. It also made them more adaptable, less devastated by loss or misfortune because they'd already considered it and mentally prepared themselves. You can apply negative visualization in your everyday life, even with simple exercises. Take a moment each morning to reflect on your day ahead. What challenges might arise? Perhaps you'll face a difficult conversation, a delay in your plans, or an unexpected expense. Now, instead of dreading these situations or hoping they won't happen, consider how you would respond if they did. Visualize yourself staying composed, making thoughtful decisions, and adapting to the circumstances. Once you've done this, you'll find that your fear starts to fade because you've already confronted it in your mind. But here's the beauty of Premeditatio Malorum *. It doesn't just prepare you for hardships, it can also make you more grateful. When you acknowledge the possibility of loss or difficulty, you naturally begin to appreciate what's going well in your life. That annoying commute might not seem so bad when you remember the alternative of not having a job at all. That minor disagreement with a friend feels smaller when you reflect on how much they mean to you. This practice grounds you, helping you see life's challenges in perspective while fostering gratitude for the good. So, how could negative visualization shift your approach to life? Take a moment to think about something you're struggling with right now or a situation you're worried about. Instead of avoiding those thoughts, try embracing them. Imagine the potential obstacles and ask yourself how you would handle them. doing this, you'll begin to realize that fear often thrives in avoidance while strength grows in preparation. And that's what Stoicism is all about, turning life's inevitable challenges into opportunities to build your resilience and grow. What if hardship was an opportunity to practice your highest values? The Stoics believed this to be true. They taught that life's difficulties are not just obstacles but opportunities to build inner resilience through the cultivation of virtues. Virtues like courage, wisdom, justice, and temperance weren't abstract ideals for the Stoics. They were practical tools for living a strong, meaningful life. And in the face of hardship, these virtues became even more essential. Let's start with courage. At its core, courage is about facing fear and persevering despite it. When life throws challenges your way, courage invites you to move forward, even when the path feels uncertain. Imagine losing a job unexpectedly. It's easy to feel paralyzed by fear or self-doubt, but courage helps you take action, whether that's updating your resume, reaching out to your network, or learning a new skill. Courage isn't the absence of fear, it's the decision that your values and goals are more important than the discomfort of uncertainty. Now consider wisdom. The Stoics saw wisdom as the ability to see things clearly, to make thoughtful decisions based on reason rather than emotion. Wisdom reminds you to pause, assess a situation, and ask yourself, what's the best course of action here? When you're in the middle of a heated argument, for example, wisdom urges you to step back and think, what outcome am I really aiming for? Is this worth the energy I'm giving it? By aligning your actions with reason rather than reacting impulsively, you avoid unnecessary suffering and make choices that bring long-term peace. Next is justice, which is about fairness, integrity, and doing what is right, not just for yourself but for others. Hardships often test our commitment to justice. Think about someone who faces criticism at work for doing the right thing, like speaking up about unethical practices. It might be tempting to stay silent to avoid conflict, but the virtue of justice encourages you to take a stand, even when it's difficult. Justice isn't just about protecting yourself, it's about contributing to the greater good, even when the cost feels high. Finally, there's temperance, the art of self-control and moderation. In moments of stress or hardship, temperance helps you balance your emotions and actions. For example, after a setback like failing an exam or missing out on an opportunity, temperance keeps you from spiraling into anger, blame, or self-pity. Instead of overeating, overspending, or lashing out, temperance encourages you to pause, reflect, and respond in a way that aligns with your values. It's about mastering yourself, even when the external world feels chaotic. But how do we practice these virtues in everyday life? One way is to treat each challenge as a chance to strengthen your virtue muscles. Just like physical exercise, the more you practice virtues, the stronger they become. For instance, each time you show courage by stepping outside your comfort zone, it becomes easier to face the next daunting situation. Each time you practice temperance by resisting a temptation, you build the discipline to stay in control during future trials. Modern examples of personal growth through challenges are everywhere. Think of someone recovering from a serious illness. Through resilience, they may develop courage to face treatments, wisdom to prioritize what truly matters, justice in advocating for others going through similar struggles, and temperance in managing their frustrations and setbacks. Their hardship becomes a crucible for developing these deeper values. The Stoics would argue that this growth isn't incidental, it's the entire purpose of hardship. Life's difficulties are not there to break you, but to shape you into the best version of yourself. So the next time you face a challenge, ask yourself, how can I use this moment to practice courage, wisdom, justice, or temperance? By focusing on virtues, you shift the narrative of hardship from one of defeat to one of growth. Reflect on a recent challenge in your own life. How did it test your values? Did it push you to act with bravery, think with clarity, or treat others with fairness? Or was it an opportunity to exercise patience and moderation? The truth is, life will continue to test you, but when you choose to respond with virtue, every challenge becomes a stepping stone toward inner resilience and true strength. What if every obstacle you faced wasn't a roadblock but a stepping stone? This is one of the most empowering ideas in Stoic philosophy. Marcus Aurelius, a Roman emperor who dealt with war, political unrest, and personal tragedy, captured this idea perfectly when he wrote, "The impediment to action advances action." What stands in the way becomes the way. In other words, the very thing that seems to be stopping you can actually propel you forward, if you choose to see it that way. This perspective is not just about enduring hardships, but about transforming them into opportunities for growth. Let's unpack this. Life is full of situations that make us feel stuck. Maybe you didn't get that dream job or a relationship ended unexpectedly. At first, it's natural to feel defeated, even helpless. But the Stoics would challenge you to ask, what can I learn from this? How can this experience make me stronger, wiser, or better prepared for the future? By shifting your perspective from a place of victimhood to one of empowerment, you stop seeing the obstacle as something that's happening to you and start seeing it as something that's happening for you. Take a common example: facing rejection. Whether it's in a career, a friendship, or a personal goal, rejection stings. But think about what happens when you look at it through Marcus Aurelius' lens. Didn't getting turned down for one job lead you to explore other paths, maybe even a better opportunity that you wouldn't have considered otherwise? Didn't a failed relationship teach you more about yourself and what you truly value in a partner? The obstacle didn't block your way completely, it redirected you, and in doing so, it helped you grow. This mindset is a skill, and like any skill, it takes practice. One way to cultivate it is by reframing setbacks in real time. The next time something doesn't go as planned, pause and ask yourself, how could this challenge help me? What lesson is hidden here? For example, let's say you're working on a big project and it completely falls apart due to unforeseen circumstances. At first, frustration may take over. But then you reflect, did this teach me to better manage my time or resources? Did it highlight areas where I could improve my skills? By viewing the obstacle as a teacher, you transform the experience into something meaningful. History is full of examples where obstacles became pathways to success. Consider Thomas Edison, who famously said, "I have not failed. I've just found 10,000 ways that won't work." His relentless experimentation in the face of repeated setbacks led to the invention of the light bulb, a breakthrough that changed the world. What if, like Edison, we saw each hardship as part of the process rather than as a sign of failure? Even small, personal challenges can serve as opportunities for growth. Imagine being stuck in traffic on your way to an important meeting. On the surface, it's a simple annoyance. But to a Stoic, even this moment is a chance to practice patience, to accept what cannot be controlled, and to focus on preparing yourself mentally for the meeting once you arrive. The traffic isn't just an inconvenience, it's an opportunity to strengthen your ability to remain calm under pressure. Of course, this mindset shift doesn't mean that hardships suddenly become easy or painless. The Stoics weren't asking us to ignore the difficulty of life's challenges. They understood that some events are deeply painful and unfair. What they offered was a way to respond with purpose and intention, to take what's painful and use it as fuel for your personal growth. It's not about pretending everything is fine. It's about finding ways to grow stronger even in moments of struggle. So, think about a challenge you're facing right now. What if you looked at it through this lens? What if that difficult situation was actually presenting you with an opportunity to develop resilience, courage, or wisdom? When you start to see obstacles as stepping stones rather than barriers, your perspective shifts. Life's challenges may not disappear, but your ability to navigate them transforms entirely. Because, as Marcus Aurelius taught, the obstacle isn't in your way, it is the way. Why do we so often tie our happiness to how things turn out? Think about it. How many times have you felt elated when something went your way, only to feel crushed when life didn't meet your expectations? It's easy to anchor our emotions and self-worth to external outcomes, a promotion, a relationship, a goal achieved. In those moments, it feels like success or failure defines us. But the Stoics had a different perspective. They taught that true peace of mind doesn't come from the things that happen to us, it comes from within, and this idea starts with detachment. Seneca, one of the most influential Stoic philosophers, often spoke about the danger of attaching your happiness to external events. He believed that the more we depend on things outside of our control, be it wealth, status, or even the approval of others, the more vulnerable we are to disappointment and frustration. To Seneca, preparing for misfortune wasn't about being pessimistic or expecting the worst. It was about grounding your peace of mind in something more stable, your internal sense of self, your values, and your ability to respond to life's challenges. Let's explore this through an example. Imagine you've been working hard toward a promotion at work. You've put in long hours, exceeded expectations, and feel you've done everything right. The day of the decision arrives and the promotion goes to someone else. In that moment, it's natural to feel upset, even angry. Maybe you start questioning your worth or replaying every decision you made, looking for mistakes. But here's what the Stoics would ask: is your value as a person truly tied to this external outcome? Or does it lie in your effort, your character, and how you handle this setback? By detaching from external outcomes, you're not dismissing the importance of goals or achievements. The Stoics weren't against ambition. Instead, they encouraged focusing on what you can control, your own actions, your effort, your attitude, and accepting the rest with grace. In the example of the missed promotion, the Stoic approach would be to take pride in the effort you gave, reflect on what you can learn, and move forward without letting the external result define your sense of self. After all, the decision wasn't entirely in your hands, so why let it have such power over your peace of mind? This mindset of detachment doesn't mean becoming indifferent or uncaring. It's not about giving up on goals or relationships. Rather, it's about recognizing that your happiness and worth don't hinge on outcomes you can't fully control. For instance, in a friendship or romantic relationship, you can't control how the other person feels or acts. You can only focus on being kind, supportive, and authentic. If the relationship ends, it's painful. But if your sense of self comes from within rather than being tied to the relationship, you'll have the resilience to heal and grow. Here's a practical exercise to start developing detachment. The next time you set a goal, focus on detaching from the outcome and instead commit fully to the process. If you're training for a marathon, don't just fixate on finishing with a certain time. Focus on showing up to your training sessions, taking care of your body, and giving your best effort. Whether you hit your target time on race day or not, you've succeeded because you controlled what you could and gave it your all. Detachment isn't about avoiding disappointment entirely. It's about building an inner stability that keeps you steady, no matter what life throws at you. When you stop attaching your emotions and self-worth to outcomes you can't control, you free yourself from a constant cycle of highs and lows driven by external events. Instead, you create a foundation of peace that no misfortune can shake. So, take a moment to reflect. How much of your happiness is tied to things outside of your control? And what would change if you anchored it in something internal, something unshakable? The more you practice this, the freer and more resilient you'll become. Mental strength isn't built overnight. It's like a muscle that grows stronger with consistent effort and practice. The Stoics understood this well, which is why they emphasized small, daily habits to prepare the mind for life's inevitable challenges. These practices weren't reserved for moments of crisis. They were woven into everyday life, helping them stay grounded and resilient no matter what came their way. And that's something we can all learn from. By committing to simple but intentional Stoic exercises, you can start training your mind to face adversity with clarity and calm. One of the most effective Stoic practices you can incorporate is journaling. Marcus Aurelius, a Roman emperor dealing with immense responsibility, wrote down his thoughts and reflections daily. These writings, later compiled into his famous book Meditations, weren't intended for anyone else. They were a private space for him to make sense of his emotions, focus on his values, and remind himself of the principles he aimed to live by. By journaling, you give yourself the same opportunity, a quiet moment each day to reflect, gain perspective, and check in with your own mind. Here's how you can get started with a Stoic-style journal. Begin or end your day by asking yourself a few simple questions. What challenges might I face today, and how can I meet them with patience and courage? Or how did I handle the difficulties I faced today? Did I act in alignment with my values? Writing down your thoughts doesn't have to take long, just a few minutes is enough. The goal isn't to judge yourself harshly, but to strengthen your self-awareness and prepare yourself mentally for the ups and downs of life. Over time, this practice becomes a powerful tool for staying centered, even when things don't go as planned. Another valuable exercise is rehearsing adversity, also known as Premeditatio Malorum or the premeditation of evils. We touched on this earlier, but let's dive deeper into how you can apply it as a daily habit. The idea is simple. Take a moment to imagine potential challenges you might face. For instance, picture yourself running late for an appointment, receiving unexpected criticism, or dealing with a financial setback. Then, instead of worrying about these scenarios, ask yourself how you would respond if they happened. How could you stay composed? What actions would reflect your best self? By rehearsing adversity in this way, you're not dwelling on worst-case scenarios. You're mentally preparing yourself to remain steady and resourceful, no matter what comes your way. Think of it as a mental dress rehearsal. When small inconveniences or bigger challenges pop up, you'll find yourself less thrown off because you've already trained your mind to respond with calm and purpose. Another simple but profound Stoic habit is practicing gratitude. This might not sound like a typical mental fortitude exercise, but it plays a critical role in resilience. The Stoics believed in appreciating what you have right now, knowing that nothing in life is guaranteed. At the end of each day, take a moment to reflect on 3 things you're grateful for. They could be as small as a kind word from a friend or as big as your overall health. Gratitude shifts your focus away from what's lacking or going wrong and helps you build a mindset of abundance and contentment. Finally, train yourself to pause before reacting. The Stoics often encouraged creating a space between stimulus and response. When something frustrates or upsets you, rather than reacting immediately, take a deep breath. Ask yourself, is this within my control? What is the best, most virtuous way I can respond? This simple pause gives you the power to act thoughtfully instead of reacting impulsively, and it's an incredible way to build mental discipline over time. Each of these practices, journaling, rehearsing adversity, gratitude, and pausing before reacting, may seem small on its own, but when woven into your daily life, they add up. They strengthen your mind, preparing it to face life's hardships with resilience and grace. Which of these could you start practicing today? Even one small habit can create a ripple effect, helping you cultivate the mental fortitude you'll need for the challenges ahead. Picture this: you're lying in bed late at night, staring at the ceiling. Your mind is racing with thoughts about tomorrow's responsibilities, a deadline at work, a tough conversation you're dreading, or the uncertainty of something completely out of your control. You replay potential outcomes over and over, each one more stressful than the last. Hours go by, and while nothing has actually happened yet, you're already exhausted by the mental strain. Sound familiar? This kind of overthinking is something we've all experienced, and Stoicism offers a way out by embracing the present moment. Marcus Aurelius observed this tendency in human nature nearly 2,000 years ago, and his advice remains timeless. Confine yourself to the present, he wrote in Meditations. The Stoics believed that much of our suffering comes not from the events of the present, but from our fear of what might happen in the future or our regret over what has already passed. They taught that instead of losing ourselves in these endless loops of worry or remorse, we should focus on the here and now, because the present is the only place we truly have power. Let's take a step back and think about why this is so important, especially during difficult times. When we face adversity, our minds often spiral into what-ifs. What if things get worse? What if I fail? What if I can't handle this? It's a natural response, but it doesn't help us. The Stoics would argue that no matter how much we think about the future, we can't predict or control it. Instead of expending precious energy on uncertainty, they encourage us to direct our attention to what is happening right now and how we can respond with clarity and purpose. Consider a simple but powerful example. Imagine getting caught in a rainstorm without an umbrella. You could spiral into frustration, thinking about how inconvenient this is, blaming yourself for not checking the forecast, or worrying about how soaking wet you'll be when you arrive at your destination. But none of that changes the reality. You're in the rain. A Stoic approach would be to accept the situation as it is and focus on what you can do in that moment. Maybe you take shelter under a tree or adjust your mindset to appreciate how refreshing the rain feels. By focusing on the present, you let go of needless suffering and take action where it matters. Marcus Aurelius often reminded himself to take life one moment at a time. Do every act of your life as though it were the last, he wrote. This doesn't mean living recklessly or thinking that disaster is around the corner. It's about bringing your full attention to what you're doing in the moment, whether it's solving a problem, comforting a loved one, or simply taking a deep breath. When we're fully present, we stop borrowing trouble from a future that hasn't happened yet and instead engage with life as it unfolds. Mindfulness, a concept deeply intertwined with Stoicism, plays a crucial role here. Mindfulness doesn't mean pushing away thoughts or pretending problems don't exist. It's about observing those thoughts without judgment and gently bringing your focus back to the moment. You might try this the next time you feel overwhelmed. Pause, take a slow breath, and ask yourself, what am I doing right now? What is within my control at this moment? This practice helps you ground yourself, quiet the mental noise, and approach challenges with a clearer, calmer mindset. Let's bring this back to you. How often do you find yourself distracted by the past or future, missing out on the life unfolding right in front of you? What would change if you started embracing the present moment, even in small ways? The Stoics weren't asking us to ignore the future altogether. They understood the importance of planning and preparation, but they also knew that the future is built one moment at a time. By focusing on the present, you not only handle hardship more effectively, but also find a sense of peace, even amidst the chaos, because life doesn't happen in the past or the future. It happens here, now, in this very moment. How often do our emotions get the better of us in tough situations? Think about a time when you felt overwhelmed by anger, fear, or sadness. Maybe it was during an argument where heated words were exchanged, or perhaps a moment of panic when something unexpected derailed your plans. In those moments, emotions can feel like a tidal wave, pulling us into reactions we might later regret. But here's the challenge: emotions, while natural and often important, can cloud our judgment and lead us to act impulsively. The Stoics understood this well, and they emphasized the practice of self-reflection and rational thought as a way to navigate even the most turbulent circumstances. One of the key principles of Stoicism is the belief that reason, not raw emotion, should guide our actions. This doesn't mean suppressing or ignoring how we feel. The Stoics weren't robots. They recognized that emotions are part of the human experience, but they also believed that emotions shouldn't control us. Instead, through reason and reflection, we can learn to process our feelings, understand their source, and respond in a way that aligns with our values rather than reacting impulsively. So how do we do this? The first step is to pause. This might sound simple, but in the heat of the moment, it can feel incredibly difficult. Picture yourself in a stressful situation. Maybe you've just received an email with bad news, or someone has said something that hit a nerve. Your immediate reaction might be to lash out, shut down, or let the frustration simmer all day. But what if, instead of reacting right away, you paused? Even a few deep breaths can create enough space to interrupt the emotional spiral. Once you've paused, the next step is to ask questions: reflective, rational questions that help you make sense of what you're feeling and why. The Stoics often encouraged this practice of self-inquiry as a way to engage reason in moments of emotional turbulence. For example, you might ask yourself, why am I feeling this way? Is this reaction helping or hurting me right now? Is this situation as catastrophic as it feels, or am I exaggerating its importance? Take a common scenario: a misunderstanding with a close friend. Maybe they cancelled plans last minute, and your initial emotion is anger. You feel disrespected. Now, instead of letting that emotion take over, you pause and reflect. You ask yourself, is my anger justified, or is it possible my friend had a good reason? Am I reacting to the situation, or am I allowing past frustrations to influence my feelings? By stepping back in this way, you might realize that your anger is more about assumptions than reality, and this realization could lead to a calm conversation instead of a heated argument. This process of stepping back and reflecting isn't about overanalyzing every feeling or suppressing emotions. It's about regaining clarity. When emotions arise, they often come with a flood of thoughts, many of which are exaggerated or untrue. The Stoics taught that by engaging reason, we can challenge these thoughts and replace them with a more balanced perspective. For instance, instead of thinking, "This is a disaster, I'll never recover," you might reframe the thought as, "This is a setback, but I can handle it and figure out a way forward." Another critical element of Stoic self-reflection is aligning your response with your values. Ask yourself, what kind of person do I want to be in this moment? How can I act in a way that reflects my principles like patience, kindness, or courage? When you take the time to bring your values into the equation, you empower yourself to choose actions that you'll be proud of later, rather than ones driven by fleeting emotions. The beauty of this practice is that it's like a muscle. The more you use it, the stronger it gets. At first, stepping back and reflecting might feel unnatural, especially in the heat of a difficult moment. But over time, it becomes second nature. You'll start to notice a shift: fewer knee-jerk reactions, more thoughtful responses, and a greater sense of control over your emotions. So, the next time you're faced with a tough situation, ask yourself, can I pause? Can I reflect on what I'm feeling and why? And can I choose a response that's guided by reason, not emotion? The more you practice, the clearer your judgment becomes, and the more equipped you'll be to handle life's challenges with the calm, rational mindset of a Stoic. And in doing so, you'll not only navigate hardships more effectively, but also strengthen your inner resilience for whatever life throws your way. Picture waves crashing onto a shore. At first, they seem powerful and unrelenting, each one pounding the sand with force, but within seconds they recede, melting back into the vastness of the ocean. This cycle repeats over and over, but no single wave stays. It rises, it falls, and it disappears. The Stoics often used metaphors like this to describe the nature of pain and suffering. To them, pain is like a wave. It might feel overwhelming in the moment, but it's inherently temporary. And when we view it through the lens of time, we realize its impermanence gives us the strength to endure. Epictetus, one of the most well-known Stoic philosophers, taught that suffering, just like pleasure, is fleeting. He reminded us that no state, whether good or bad, lasts forever. If you're going through a difficult time right now, it might feel like the hardship will never end, but the Stoics would encourage you to step back and widen your perspective. Ask yourself, where will this moment of pain be in a year, 5 years, or even a lifetime? Chances are, the intensity you feel now will soften into a distant memory. And like the waves, it will eventually recede. Let's take a practical example. Imagine you've just experienced a major disappointment, like failing at something you worked hard for: a job interview, an exam, or a personal goal. In the immediate aftermath, it feels crushing. You might think, "This failure defines me," or "I'll never recover from this." But what happens when you project yourself forward in time? A few months or years from now, this event might barely register in your memory. And even if it does, it likely won't carry the same weight. What the Stoics understood, and what Epictetus would remind us, is that pain, like everything in life, is impermanent. This doesn't mean the Stoics dismissed pain or hardship. They weren't suggesting we ignore our struggles or pretend they don't exist. Instead, they encouraged us to reframe our perspective. When we recognize that pain is temporary, we can endure it with greater patience and strength. Knowing that the discomfort will pass doesn't make it pleasant, but it does make it manageable. It reminds us that we've survived every previous challenge we faced, and that this one, too, will eventually fade. Epictetus also believed that how we respond to pain determines its impact on us. He said, "It's not what happens to you, but how you react to it that matters." If we view pain as something permanent and insurmountable, it grows in our minds, taking up more space than it deserves. But if we see it as a passing moment, a wave that will soon recede, it loses its grip on us. We become less consumed by it and more focused on the strength we're building by enduring it. Think about this in the larger context of life. Everything we experience, whether joy, sorrow, success, or failure, is part of an ever-changing cycle. Just as winter gives way to spring, each moment of hardship will eventually give way to something new. The Stoics didn't just apply this wisdom to personal struggles. They used it to confront even life's greatest challenges, including the inevitability of loss or even death. They believed that by accepting the impermanence of all things, we could approach life with greater courage and gratitude. So, how can you apply this idea to your own life? The next time you're in the midst of pain, whether physical, emotional, or mental, pause and remind yourself of its temporary nature. Visualize it as a wave, powerful for a moment but destined to fade. Ask yourself how you might view this pain in a month or a year, and reflect on the strength you're cultivating by facing it head-on. Because while pain comes and goes, the resilience you build in the process will stay with you. The Stoic view of pain is ultimately a hopeful one. It doesn't deny the reality of suffering but puts it into perspective. Waves will always crash against the shore, but they'll always retreat. And so will the hardships in your life, leaving behind the wisdom and growth you gain from weathering them. Have you ever noticed how much of our suffering comes not from the events themselves, but from our resistance to them? Imagine being stuck in a traffic jam. The situation itself is frustrating, but what often makes it unbearable is our internal dialogue. "This shouldn't be happening," or "Why didn't I leave earlier?" That resistance builds tension, frustration, and stress. But what if you stopped fighting the reality of the traffic and instead accepted it? You might still wish it were different, but by letting go of resistance, you ease the mental burden and create space for peace. The Stoics deeply understood this idea. They taught that while we cannot control the events that happen to us, we can control how we respond to them. And at the heart of this response lies acceptance. Acceptance to the Stoics isn't about resignation or passivity. It's about acknowledging reality as it is without unnecessary judgment or resistance. When we stop wishing for things to be different and instead align ourselves with how things truly are, we free ourselves from much of the anguish that resistance creates. Epictetus captured this wisdom when he said, "Do not seek to have events happen as you want them to, but instead want them to happen as they do happen, and your life will go smoothly." This doesn't mean we should suppress our emotions or pretend that painful situations aren't difficult. It means recognizing that fighting against reality doesn't change it. By accepting what is, we conserve our energy to focus on what we can control. Our thoughts, our actions, and how we choose to move forward. Let's look at an example of how this plays out in modern life. Think about a time when you've experienced loss, whether it was the end of a relationship, the loss of a job, or even the passing of a loved one. The pain of loss is universal, and it's natural to feel grief or sadness. But so often, we add an extra layer of suffering by resisting the reality of the situation. Thoughts like, "This shouldn't have happened," or "Why me?" create a struggle within us as if rejecting the truth will somehow reverse it. The Stoics would encourage us to acknowledge the pain but to accept that the loss has occurred. Through acceptance, we stop pouring energy into wishing the past were different and instead focus on how we can move forward with grace and resilience. Change is another area where our resistance often causes unnecessary turmoil. Life is constantly shifting, whether it's a change in circumstances, relationships, or even our own identity. Yet, instead of adapting, we often cling to how things used to be, refusing to let go. Consider someone who struggles with aging. They might spend their energy lamenting the loss of their youth, trying to hold onto something that's naturally fleeting. But the Stoic view offers another path, to accept change not as a loss, but as a natural part of existence. By embracing the reality of impermanence, we can find peace in each stage of life rather than fighting against an inevitable process. Acceptance doesn't mean we stop striving or working toward positive outcomes. It doesn't mean we ignore injustice or tolerate harmful behavior. What it does mean is that we approach life with clarity, seeing things as they are, not as we wish they were. When faced with a challenge, we can focus our energy on what's within our control rather than wasting it on resisting what's already happened. It's about learning to flow with the current of life rather than exhausting ourselves by swimming against it. Reflect on your own life for a moment. Is there a situation you've been resisting, something you wish wasn't true, but that you ultimately can't change? How might your perspective shift if you embrace the Stoic principle of acceptance? By aligning yourself with reality, you take the first step toward finding peace amidst life's unpredictability. Because as the Stoics understood, it is not the events themselves that disturb us, but our refusal to accept them for what they are. And in acceptance, we discover a source of enduring calm and strength. So, what have we learned from the Stoics about facing life's hardships? At the heart of their philosophy lies 4 key principles: control, resilience, growth, and acceptance. These aren't abstract ideas, they're practical tools you can use every single day to navigate challenges with strength and clarity. First, there's the principle of control. The Stoics remind us that while we can't dictate the events of life, we can control how we respond to them. By focusing on what's within our power, our thoughts, choices, and actions, we free ourselves from the anxiety of trying to control the uncontrollable. Whether it's a missed opportunity or an unexpected setback, remember, you don't have to control the storm, you just have to control how you steer your ship through it. Next is resilience, the ability to endure hardships without breaking. Resilience grows from seeing obstacles not as insurmountable problems but as chances to build inner strength. The Stoics embraced the idea that every challenge is an opportunity to practice your virtues, whether it's courage, patience, or self-discipline. Think of resilience as your mental armor, forged through daily practices like shifting your perspective, staying mindful, and focusing on long-term growth. And that brings us to growth. The Stoics believed that hardships are not just something to survive, they're something to learn from. Each setback, failure, or difficult moment is a teacher, showing you where you need to grow and what you're capable of. When you stop seeing obstacles as barriers and start seeing them as stepping stones, you transform adversity into the fuel for personal development. Finally, there's acceptance. This doesn't mean passively resigning yourself to life's difficulties. It means having the wisdom to stop resisting what you cannot change. By aligning yourself with reality, you let go of unnecessary suffering and focus your energy on what truly matters. As Epictetus taught, make the best use of what is in your power and take the rest as it happens. And here's the most powerful takeaway: hardships are unavoidable, but suffering is optional. Life will never be free of challenges, but by applying these principles, you can face them with a sense of calm, strength, and purpose. You can't control every wave that comes your way, but you can control how you navigate them. That's the essence of Stoicism, a philosophy not about avoiding hardship, but about mastering the art of living well despite it. Now, here's a question to reflect on. How will you apply these principles in your own life today? The Stoics didn't see their philosophy as something to ponder over and forget. It was meant to be practiced day in and day out. So think about one small step you can take, whether it's pausing to reflect before reacting, practicing gratitude, or simply accepting something you can't change. I'll leave you with one of Marcus Aurelius' most enduring quotes. You have power over your mind, not outside events. Realize this and you will find strength. Let this reminder guide you as you face life's challenges, cultivating the wisdom and resilience to thrive. If this video resonated with you, consider subscribing to the channel and sharing your thoughts in the comments. Let us know how you're applying Stoic principles in your life. Your insights might inspire someone else on their journey. Together, we can continue exploring how to live with purpose, strength, and clarity. Thanks for watching, and remember, the Stoic path is one of action, so go out and